One of the requirements for being a teaching apprentice for CJ 495 Special Topics course, Orange is the New Black, Women in Prison and the Media, was to create and prepare a visual presentation poster board describing the teaching aspects of the course. And that was to be presented in a research and pictorial showcase in Florida at the Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences 52nd Annual Meeting Program titled Broadening the Horizon of the Criminal Justice Sciences, Looking Outward Rather Than Inward. This offered the opportunity to participate in an innovative, progressive, interactive presentation of my research that is more likely to reach a wider audience than traditional panel presentations. It was not a competition, but was designed to inform other faculty, students, and criminal justice professionals an alternative strategy for examining women in prison. The showcase is a collection of visual displays of research that encourages informal interaction between authors and attendees. The primary author becomes a featured presenter at the ACGS's showcase event and must be in attendance and committed to stay by the presentation throughout a 90-minute session. I wasn't able to attend due to other obligations, but my professor was there to explain my research, findings, and interpretations of his teachings and what the students learned throughout the course. A research and pictorial showcase consists of two components. First, it's a visual display of research that's required to include a title, the name of the author, affiliation, abstract, key points, graphics, and references. The second component requires that the author interact with the conference participants, browsing the visual presentations during the allotted time, and the presenter then entertains informal questions and discussions about the research. The special nature of the pictorial showcase presentation was added to the showcase title to encourage presentations of qualitative research that is best presented in a pictorial display. For example, a depiction of prison life, as you see here. In order to complete this project, it required me to attend the class and observe what the teacher was teaching and how the students were reacting to it. I was also given the opportunity to teach a couple of the class activities for the students to apply toward future assignments and this project. One of the aspects of the course was to introduce the concept of gender by finding the objecting issues of women in prison. Then discuss from the information in the book A Woman Doing Life by Aaron George, Orange is the New Black by Piper Kerman, and Orange is the New Black the series with those findings, including but not limited to describing how gender was expressed by personal experience. There are several different but exceptional reports that were turned in regarding this assignment, and one is included in the poster. Several assignments that were given throughout the semester, and those assignments were used along with the two books in the series to further understand the main concept of the course. One of the assignments was actually to have the students come up with their own reading list that they believe applied to the course, which some of them are listed there. Using the different strategies for course delivery and having the students determine the reading list taught them how to find reliable and relevant resources that were comparable to the required reading in the series. After the literature search was finished, they reported it to the instructor in various forms. One of the more ingenious forms used, an infographic, was introduced to the class through one of my class activities. An infographic is a big picture that helps communicate whatever story or subject a person wants to explain by telling it visually through pictures, by breaking the information down into the simplest forms so there's less clutter to look at, making it easier to understand. A few other comparisons in the class was the National Geographic special Hard Time and the 1950s movie Caged. Using these media and entertainment portrayals and comparing them to the required reading material and the series, students had another manner to see how the truth of what is and what the entertainment of what producers want them to think the truth is. The Hard Times special gave students the real-life portrayal of the Ohio Reformatory for Women, ORW, does with the women offenders that are within the walls. The special also showed how the officers and the warden enacted policies and processes on how they processed different issues that arose with the women of ORW from day to day. The 1950s movie Cage displayed how an innocent, if only in heart, young woman can turn into what we think of as a typical woman prisoner. Being mean, hard, violent, and even when released, is seen at having no chance at life on the outside, but will be doomed to return. The students will be leaving the class with the knowledge on how much media stimulates society's idea of how to see women in prison. Using the resources from the class and the reading lists, it's hoped that the students will understand how the portrayal of incarcerated women in the media can misrepresent the factual nature of gender in prison. While Orange is the New Black is a highly entertaining series, it does little to inform the general public about the unique issues women in prison are faced with. With assessing the students throughout the semester, it was noted that they learned more through comparing and contrasting the differences between the two books and the series required for the class. Giving the student the responsibility of locating relevant scholarly material and using them to complete assignments, it was found that they participated more and their understanding of the issues was increased. Most of the feedback that was given periodically throughout the semester was positive. Students agreed that the teaching aspects of the course were interesting, entertaining, and stimulating. Movies and parts of the series during class times gave the students a chance to ask questions during the class period instead of having to watch the series on their own. This made it easier for them to understand different aspects of what they observed, which created a better learning environment. Some of the topics that were brought up by the students included criminal profiles, or the histories of the inmates, the relationships between inmates, the portrayal of female offenders, the effectiveness of prison as a deterrent, pregnant inmates, reentry into society, women inmates and their families, racial relationships, and gangs. Other topics that were covered were federal sentencing, female drug offenders and offenses, sexual assault, male versus female prison codes, available programs, and transgender and/or sexual orientations. Discussions throughout the semester dealt with if inmates were violent or nonviolent, if there was simple assault, if they knew their victims, or if their victims were women or men. They also considered if there was a prior history of abuse or if they had dependent children. Statistics say that incarceration rates for women is rising faster than men, and in 73% of cases, the women have some form of mental illness. In another 44% of cases, the women inmates didn't have a high education, if any. Some students believe this was a major minority overrepresentation. With homicide, most of the victims were an intimate or some other known victim. A handful are also more likely to be incarcerated for aggravated assault than simple, and there are more that included the presence of a weapon and the intent to do harm. The students found that the research portrayed women carrying more bitterness toward the outside influences on how they got to be incarcerated than men, and didn't carry the responsibility themselves. What the class needed to know at this point was if the women would have done better at rehabilitation in a different kind of institution besides prison, such as a nursing home for older inmates, a disability treatment center for the disabled if they were no longer able to be a danger to others. If there was a danger element with a diminished responsibility, maybe a public or mental health facility or a program would have assisted better. In the ORW that was discussed earlier, 50% of those inmates were on some kind of medication for mental instability. What if a few would have done better in an army, boot, or work camp, or some kind of boarding school instead of prison? All this information was used to create different aspects of the poster board. One other activity that was used was the 2 books in the series, and to have the students come up with the examples from each on a few topics such as healthcare, gender roles, and sexual assault, which is the second poster. I wanted to address the major issues with each book in the series and see if any of them overlapped. This activity was also a test to the knowledge of the students to see if they remembered what they'd read and watched and noticed the difference themselves between 2 true life books and a make-believe series based on a book. As you can see from the poster, there are a lot of examples that they came up with. As I had said, all this information was put together into these two posters, which my professor presented at the annual meeting. Piper Kerman, the author of Orange is the New Black, was actually the guest speaker at the conference, but didn't get a chance to see the posters before she left. Due to the amount of effort that I put into the project, my professor allotted me the title of first author, and I'm proud to be able to stand here and share my accomplishments with you. Thank you.